Well, we're at the top of the hour, so Nancy, I'll let you take it away.
Hey, well, I'm going to pass it along down to Tim Backus, who's one of the other moderators here. So, Tim. Oh, he's silenced. Can't hear you, Tim.
How about now?
There you go.
You know, that makes so much more sense because I thought apparently nobody wants to talk back to me. Like talking and anyway. So you all can hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. Well, welcome everyone. Welcome to the Small Yet Mighty Post-Pandemic Growth and Change in Small Churches. My name is Tim Backus. I'm the vicar at St. Bridget in Frederick. I've been there for about 2 years. And many of you might know one of our other moderators, Dr. Nancy Kinney. Nancy?
Yes, I'm here because I helped participate in the Small and Rural Church Task Force and was previously a missioner for the Northwest region. I noticed we have 2 of our missioners at least in the meeting here today, so that's terrific.
We have a third moderator, the Reverend Melissa George. Melissa is the rector at Ascension in Salida and the vicar at Shepherd of the Hills in Crestone. Unfortunately, Melissa is unable to join us today for this conversation. Her mother is in the middle of some procedures, so we certainly wish and offer our prayers to them. I'd like to begin with opening a prayer. The Lord be with you.
And also with you.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, help us to remind ourselves that we do not need to be big to be mighty. We can be small, and we can be a fantastic congregation that is here to serve you. We thank you for all those who are present in our conversation, particularly you who are in our midst. We thank you for the ministries that these various churches and leaders offer, the ways that we support one another and hold each other up as we continue towards the spreading of the kingdom of God. We all have obstacles. Help us to continue to see them as obstacles that need to be overcome. Help us to listen to you on how we can do that. All this we ask in your name. Amen.
Amen. Great. Well, I would join Tim in welcoming you today. I think we've got some folks who are not only from small congregations, but others who are perhaps delegates to general or to diocesan convention who have an interest in this subject matter, which I'm really appreciative for. The last couple of years, we've really tried to dig into this area and understand more. I think our church at large is trying to get a grip on what it means to be a small or smaller congregation and what we can do to make a difference in our communities and to serve those who are part of our own community. So a few little details here. I did a little digging and looked at some information. We don't use ASA measure lightly here, but it is just one way for us to have a sense of what is changing in our church. And so we have the benefit of the 2022 parochial report data available now. And if you, this little lineup is a little bit strange, but the first column, of course, was from 2012, 10 years ago. So at that point, the Diocese of Colorado had 18 congregations that reported an ASA of 25 people or less. And we see in 2022 that number has grown significantly to being 29, or perhaps close to 1 in 3 churches in our diocese. It's kind of wonky, the numbers in between. COVID did a real kind of messed around with our ability to gauge accurately what was happening in our congregations if you're using the parochial report data as any kind of a measure. But this is not just something which Colorado is experiencing, but the entire Episcopal Church. The numbers there reflect an estimated 37% of congregations have an ASA of 25 or less. So this is definitely something which is the church is experiencing more and more of, and so we need to be paying attention to it and figuring out how to support, how to encourage, how to celebrate the example of those who are serving in these smaller congregations. So that will be hopefully our focus today. So Tim, before we go to this particular slide, I'm going to ask Tim to say a little bit. He's going to share with us about the Small Church Abound retreat. Maybe Mike, you could blank off this screen for a minute.
Yeah, thank you very much, Nancy. In addition to the data that you showed, many of us think that a large congregation is 150 people, 250 people. What is the difference between a large and a small congregation when it comes to your average Sunday attendance? So I think that one statistic that you mentioned, where a third of our congregations are, I believe you said about 25 and under. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
And so it might also surprise us that 2/3 of our congregations in this diocese are 80 and under. So only a third of the congregations in this diocese have an average Sunday attendance of over 80. So most of our congregations are considered on the small side. Over the summer, we had a fantastic Abound retreat. This is a retreat that was for average Sunday attendance of congregations with an 80 or less. So we looked at a couple different emphases. We looked at a couple different priorities on what we wanted to discuss during this treat. And one of the ways that we started is the recognition that all of us are in this kind of situation. We cannot do everything. As small churches, we do not have the staff some larger churches do. We might not have the volunteers that some larger churches do. We might find that some volunteers are doing 80% of the work. That's kind of a typical church number. But in our smaller churches, when you've got 80 people, 80% of the people doing all the work, that's a smaller number of people. So burnout is a very strong issue that all of us deal with. And with the pandemic, it's just only continued to grow since then. So one, we wanted us to recognize that we cannot do everything. We don't have all the people to do everything. For many of our small churches, you might not have a full-time priest. You might not even have a part-time priest. You might not have any administrative staff. And it's okay to scale back. Some of those things that churches were doing before COVID might have been feeding us, but over the years since that time, we might see that they're draining us a little bit more than they were before, or maybe we're more aware of how draining a specific ministry or a church event might be on us. So we'll put that to the side for right now on what it is that can drain us and if that's a benefit or if that's something that we can let go of. One thing that I would like to offer, so being a leader of a small church for the past 2 years, especially coming out of that pandemic, what is it that excites you? What is it in your church that creates a spark? Something that excites you, that is a spark for you, or a spark for other members of the congregation. There's got to be something that creates energy and excitement to move towards a place of thriving as opposed to maintenance of the church. We want to be growing in some aspect, whether it's spiritually, whether it's with members of the congregations. I mean, we want to continue to grow. And it's that spark. It's that feeling that brings people to want to come, helps people to want to become more involved. So think about what it is in your church that creates the spark. And if there's not anything that you can think of or anything the congregation would recognize that creates a spark, maybe that's something really to look at a little bit more closely. So consider what it is that is going well in your congregations. Most of us, whether it's COVID or some other reason, maybe not most of us, but many of us can tend to look at all the things that aren't happening, the things that we're missing, the things that aren't going quite as well, and we end up focusing on the negative. And if you're like me, once you start focusing on the negative, it can just continue to spiral out of control. So not just for your own individual mental and emotional health, but also for the health of a congregation. Focus on the positives. Even if sometimes you feel there's a couple weeks or months you need to dig around a little bit more to locate what those positives are, focus on the positive things that are happening in your congregation. Because if you continue to focus on the negative, it will continue to bring not just you, but your leadership team and the members of the church down. And it'll be much harder to reinvigorate, create excitement again in your church. So all of our churches are different. We might be Episcopal churches, but that doesn't mean all of us are the same. We've got different sizes. We've got different areas that we live. So thinking about your church, what are the unique strengths that your church has? Could it be your music program is outstanding? You recently got new musicians, or whatever the case may be, you have a solid number in your choir, but the church musicians or the music seems to be a strength in your church. Maybe it is more of an outreach that your church does that the community knows you for, whether it's food program or a garden or doing prison ministry. What is your church's strength? If it is something that the community knows you by, an outreach, then that certainly would be a strength. Are you an open and inclusive congregation? Are you not? What does your structure of the building look like? Do you have a lot of space inside your building? Do you have a lot of space on your property? Because that really can be a strength. You might not be using it as effectively as you could, but it could be an additional revenue stream. We're thinking of ways to bring other members of the community, whether it's groups, into your church to offer something to them, which is offering for the community, but also strengthens your individual church by getting more people to know who you are and where you are. So not just the church's unique strengths, but also your individual leadership strengths. What is it that you in particular are gifted at doing? Maybe you are more organized. Maybe your leadership team is really good at meeting new people. Maybe your church has a very open, welcoming atmosphere that's really strengthened by a couple key individuals. What are the individuals are particular leaders? And think about those things too. So focus on those positive aspects of your church, even when there might be some negative things that are swirling around. When you focus on the positives, you can remain up here and continue moving in that direction as opposed to getting sucked in that negative spiral that will bring you and your church community going down. So on those lines, something that was important for us as we did this Abound retreat is, particularly after the pandemic, all of us in churches have ministries that we are a part of. We have ministries that we really enjoy, and there might be some ministries that you just do not like. You do not like them at all. And you might not be the only one in your congregation. It might not be that you don't like it. You might think that this just doesn't have the appeal that it used to have before, or it may not be as effective as it once was. What are some ministries or church events that you have that maybe it's time to move on? Maybe it's not something that we need to continue doing. It could be burning you and burning your church out more than spiritually feeding you. So, as mentioned at the beginning of this, we can't do everything. For many of us, our church numbers have gotten smaller. Maybe we've gotten older. Maybe our finances aren't there the way that they used to be. We cannot continue doing everything. I've certainly heard this, and you might have as well, because of the pandemic. Post-pandemic, what we used to be able to do at 100% now might only feel like 70%. So even now, even though we're past most of the pandemic, however a person wants to word that, what we are able to do individually now, or even as a church, what we can do 70% or 80% now might continue to be that 100% that we used to be able to do beforehand. So lowering some of those expectations, knowing that you're not going to be able to do everything that you were able to do before. And that might mean really letting go of some of the ministries or church events that are burning you and your congregation out. So how do you let go? What is it that is burning you or your congregation out? Is that working anymore, or is it something that, maybe this is something that we can let go of? So when we talked about this in our retreat, burying old ministries, there are things that we can let go of. It might have been something amazing that our church used to do 2 decades ago. And if it's not working now, and maybe it hasn't been working for a couple of years, it may be once we are able to shift our focus away from trying to resurrect or survive that particular ministry, maybe we can see where it is that God is taking us. And it might be a completely different direction. It might be just a subtle change in a different population because our culture or maybe the surrounding community has changed. So something's got to give. We can't do everything, and it is okay to let things go. And when you let it go, you can bury it. Think about if you've got something in your church where there's not many people that are excited or jumping up to lead those events, those might be the events or ministries that know when it's time to let them go. And if they are important after a year or two, you might have someone else that says that maybe hasn't been involved before, or, I really wish that we were still doing this again, and they might jump up to lead it. It's hard to get people to jump up to lead something when they think somebody else is truly invested. But for us, some of those people that the outside sees as truly invested have been getting burned out for years. So how can you let go of things? And when we do let go of things, when we let things bury, the ashes do develop, and eventually over time, growth does come out. New life comes out of ashes. So when we let go of something that is draining us, when we are able to hold more in energy and excitement towards trying something new, we can do that when we don't have to put as much time, energy, and focus on the things that are killing us spiritually. So maybe there's a different outreach to the community. And some would say that sometimes you got to close a new door, or you got to close a door to see another one that is open. You can certainly see cracks of doors being opened, even when you've got cracks of another door being opened. Sometimes when you close that door, it really forces you to look outside of those things that you had always done, and maybe realizing, you know what, maybe these things aren't working the way that they used to. I've got one example that I want to mention, and I won't add a whole lot more beyond this. But my previous church, this might be your congregation. It might be a congregation that you know. We don't have children. We don't have youth. We need to grow the young adults, young families in order for this church to survive. So my previous congregation, we had that mindset for quite a period of time, several years. And it wasn't until we started taking some steps back, knowing that there were other churches in this area of Gulf Breeze, right outside of Pensacola, Florida, where I came from before here, that in that area, that smaller community of Gulf Breeze, there were several larger churches. And those larger churches had a strong emphasis on children, youth, family ministries, which is great. It wasn't our church. We wanted that to be our church, but it wasn't happening. But that wasn't really a need that the community had that we thought. We thought that we, as an Episcopal church, needed to also offer that. And it could be that that's your church, and continue fighting towards that. But what we decided to do is, once we stopped focusing on this is what we need to do in order for the church to survive, we don't have to focus and place all of our emphasis on children, youth, and young families. When we started looking around, we realized that Gulf Breeze, being a retirement community, there wasn't a single senior center in all of Gulf Breeze. There wasn't a single one. So any seniors who wanted to go to a day senior center, they would have to travel, across a bridge, 25 minutes to get to one of the nearby town senior centers. So upon realizing that, we started moving towards creating a senior center. So Gulf Breeze has a senior center now at St. Francis Episcopal Church in Gulf Breeze. So when we started to change our focus from thinking that we had to do something very particular and realizing the community had something to fill those needs, other churches that had that need filled of strong children, youth, family programs, but they didn't have seniors. They didn't have anything for seniors. So when we closed that door, we realized there was a whole area of life and of ministry that was just waiting to be reached out to. So we also talked about diocesan support, and if we have time, we can look at that as well. I mean, we got Canon Mike Orr on this call, who knows everything inside and out. But if we do have time towards the end, we can look at a couple specifics related to the website. So
Okay.
at this time, Dr. Kinney, I will turn it back over to you.
Okay, great. I drew some information from the Small and Rural Church Task Force report, and I'm really glad to see my good friend Doug Saxton out there in the audience. And maybe he can join me on this particular slide, but the slide that talks about thriving, there we go. This is just drawn from our report, be familiar to a lot of you. And we're gonna look at this first and then talk a little bit about something Melissa had offered us. And since she's been sort of out of pocket, I didn't get the source for her information, but we found that in talking to individuals across our diocese who are in small churches, that there were a number of factors or indicators of what made them thrive. And some of this really ties into what Tim just shared with us about maybe letting one thing go and taking on something else. But you can read here what's on this particular slide. But a strong lay leadership, having something of an outward focus, whatever that might be just hosting another outside community group to take up residence in your church building. being aware that the community looks at your church as something which is part of the spiritual fabric. There is a religious ecology that takes place in every community. There's actually literature about that. And so is your church seen as an actor, as a partner for community activities and so forth? That's certainly part of it. Having a high percentage, a high rate of congregational participation in activity like outreach. I noticed something very interesting. I think it's interesting. I'm not sure really what it means, but when I will look through the parochial report data for our diocese, I found that smaller churches tend to have a much closer relationship between their ASA and their membership. If you look at larger churches, there's a far larger number who are indicated as members, but much smaller numbers in terms of ASA. And I'm not sure exactly what that means, but as we talked about it, we thought, people in small churches know each other. They know who goes to that church. They know who's participating. They know each other. And I'm not sure what that means for larger churches, that they have huge memberships, but they don't have that many people or as many people attending every worship service. So I don't know if that's something we want to talk about or put some conjecture out there about that. But back to our indicators of thriving small churches. Using church facilities and the property in support of outreach. This is one of the most interesting, exciting things we heard about from people across the diocese and beyond, from those we've spoken to outside of our diocese, that when there can be some reason to be tied to community needs with our property, our buildings, that there's some way we can be, our reach can be extended out into the community. And often we don't think very creatively about this. I think I might have shared this example with either the Small and Rural Church Task Force or some other group, but that, I visited some churches around the diocese and in our region. I won't name which church it is, but the church that had at one time a child care center in the lower level of the church. And you went down there and it was though everything was just trapped in time in this lower level. And it gave me the creeps. I just thought this is like a scary movie or something, to have all of this stuff left over from years before, that clearly the church had not figured out a way to utilize that space in some new and creative way once the child care program was no longer there. Maybe you've had that experience in your churches as well. So that kind of wraps this up. This particular slide, Doug, do you want to say something else about this slide? Since you're responsible for this good work.
I would like to point out that for us at All Saints, I mean, I participated in the task force as well, and there were a number of people in the congregation, a good percentage, that read the report. And a number of them really took to heart the suggestion that looking outward rather than inward could make a big difference in whether we thrived or not. At the same time, we felt that we had for a mission statement being a caring presence in our community. And we felt that because of COVID and some other demographics in the church, a drop in membership, some people dying and so forth, that we were no longer capable of doing a big outreach. I guess we're in the knot of associating outreach with large programs that served a lot of people, that also involved a lot of people. We didn't have a lot of people. We still don't. But because we were thinking about this outward focus, we decided to call on the diocese for some help in taking another look at our baptismal covenant and what really our mission is Christian people was supposed to be. And half of the people who attended every Sunday decided to participate with the missioner on baptismal living in a 4-week course. Tracy Methy did a great job with us. For 4 weeks, we looked at things like our commitments that we made, our spiritual autobiography, being able to assess community needs, what needed doing in the community, and then from that standpoint, applying our own gifts. And when I say gifts, I mean things that we are good at and also look forward to doing. And there is a difference. So once this 4-week hybrid course based on My Faith, My Life by Ms. Gomber, we all did some research. We looked in all directions at the community and said, well, what is the community lacking that we might be able to address? We came up with about 20 things after we compiled all of our findings. And as a result, there were things that some people expressed a strong interest in, and things that people didn't. And we concluded that because of the varied interest, that there probably wasn't more, probably if there was one thing we could do together, that would be great, but not to limit our sights on just what we could do together. We do have personal ministries that many of us enjoy doing. Maybe we did it in the past, but we've never followed up on it or never resumed doing it. And the result of our work was that half of us have taken on new personal ministries. They don't constitute a church project or a church program. They're just things we do out there. And we found it's been really rewarding. And then the other thing was that we had one big project that we did that really made our place in the community, and that was a community breakfast. And we had all been thinking, we've lost so many people, we couldn't hope to do that again. Well, we found out we could. There were the same number of people, including people in the outreach group and not, that said they could participate again in this breakfast. Plus, there were 4 new members that weren't here when we did it the last time. And they were very, very eagerly stepped up. So we have just as many, if not more people to do that breakfast than we had pre-COVID. And so we're very enthused about what we're doing. And we feel a lot different about ourselves and our church.
Right.
And I feel that we're thriving because of it. The others feel good as well. So I just wanted to share that. And there's one main point is that when you do outreach, don't think in terms of what kind of a project you can own. That is, do it in your church with your own people. Because there are others in the community that are already doing things. You can help do their thing better. And that's very worthy of your own personal ministry. It doesn't have to be something that you can do all by yourself, because there are a lot of organizations out there that you can contribute to. So that's about it, but I wanted to share what's been going on with us since our report was written.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you, Doug. Doug was co-chair of the task force, and he's at All Saints in Battlement Mesa. I should say this because not everybody knows where all these small churches are. So test your geography knowledge to figure out where Battlement Mesa is. You've probably driven past it many times, but that's great. All right, Mike, do you want to forward the slide to the next one? Again, this is from Melissa, who couldn't be with us today. I'm really sorry about that. But she came up with this list from some source, and we couldn't pin down exactly where it came from, hitting many of the same themes: collaborative leadership, leadership within the congregation that isn't dependent just on a clergy person, but on a team of individuals, lay and clergy. This idea that churches that are growing embrace ecumenism, which many of our congregations, certainly in the Northwest region, from my experience, many of our congregations there could not function unless they were cooperating with other denominations. One example would be here in our diocese, the Interfaith Chapel in Edwards, which is a beautiful facility in a very wealthy area, but an area where it's very difficult to purchase land and build your own building. Now, this isn't a small church, mind you, but the idea that even some of our bigger churches are benefiting from that kind of embrace of ecumenism and working with other denominations. We've said quite a bit already about churches that are growing service to their communities. Some interesting facts and ideas here about the fact that many churches, I think of St. George in Leadville, that relies a great deal upon grant funding to carry out their community service. But this last one I found was just a really fascinating thing, and it sort of ties into what Tim had shared earlier, that some churches are growing because they are attracting newly retired people. They have flexible worship and programming, etc. They don't try to be just, unto themselves and yet embracing and welcoming new people. I should also say there's some good stuff coming up in the chat, which I'm not sure I can keep track of while I'm talking here, but maybe if anyone wants to elaborate or say a little bit more about some of the ideas that have shown up there. I noticed that Scott Hollenbeck just popped up with something. Scott, are you there? Can you say something about denominations working together?
Yes, I can. I'm having video problems. I apologize for that. Is my microphone alive?
Yep, we can hear you.
Wonderful. In our local community, just after Pentecost, the local United Methodist Church decided to disaffiliate from the denomination and went independent. This resulted in a group, a significant group, who labeled themselves as the remnants and committed to remaining or in the belief that the United Methodist needed to continue their presence within the community. And we opened our doors wide and offered them a safe place, if you will, to meet and organize and worship with us. And it's the energy around the parish is it's been amazing. And we know we have a model in Buena Vista of how this could look, but we're just exploring organizing ourselves, and already we have a ecumenical book club between our two parishes, as well as recommitted to supporting the local food bank. And let's see, there's one other item that just slips my mind at the moment, but good things happening here, just amazing energy, and our parish really needed this in our parish life.
Yes, and Scott, could you tell everybody where you're at and what church we're talking about?
Oh, yeah, St. James Episcopal Church in Meeker, Colorado. We're situated halfway between Craig to the north and Rifle to the south on Highway 13.
Great, thank you. I shouldn't just assume everybody knows where all these congregations are, but fascinating story, and being willing to cooperate and welcome others into your midst. I'm not sure I have another slide. I've forgotten now. Mike, do I have another slide, or is that it? Oh, look at that. Well, we have a question for discussion, and we really should. I'm gonna rephrase this slightly, but we would like to hear from all of you. Maybe those of you who put some things in the chat could speak up about anything we've shared so far. But I think I would like to make this question something more like, what has changed for the better in your congregation following the pandemic? Not necessarily because of the pandemic. We don't want to give the pandemic credit for that. But what has changed for the better in your congregation following this disruption in our life together? I'd like to open it up for any comments or questions. And Missy's got her hand up, so I'm just going to, another member of the task force on small and rural churches. So Missy, please.
I'm from St. Stephen's, Monte Vista, and I'm also the Southwest Region Administrator. Yeah, so at St. Stephen's, one of the things that developed out of the pandemic was more lay-led services. So we have a lay pastoral leader, Diane Parker, and she's been really good at organizing a preaching rota. And so we have several people who get up and preach on any given Sunday. We're in the process of getting a contract signed with Father Doug Neal to be our partnership vicar. We're in partnership with St. Augustine's Creed. Anyway, we do morning prayer 2 or 3 Sundays a month, depending on how big the month is. Then we have usually the first Sunday of the month, and then any holidays would be Father Doug, and then the other remaining Sundays would be communion from the reserved sacrament. But sometimes Diane will lead morning prayer, but somebody else will preach, or lead the lay pastoral service and somebody else would preach. And so it's been really, really good. We recently had a member return to St. Stephen's who had left to go to the Methodist church because his wife was Methodist, and the Methodist church is big, and so she likes the big church and the beautiful organ and all of that. Well, after our local Methodist church left the Methodist church and started their own, Gene came back to St. Stephen's and brought his money with him too. He's a local lawyer, and he recently was tapped on the shoulder by somebody he knew who was from Gideon's International, and he went to the Gideon's lunch, and so we kind of renewed our relationship with the local Gideons via that way. Our area is really conservative, so we're just sort of floating around in the middle, trying to to maintain our relationships with everybody. So we still do ecumenical work, even with these other churches that, with the Methodist church and or what they're I can't remember what they call themselves. I mean, Methodist is still in the word, but not Community Methodist Church, I think is what they call it. But they changed their sign to show they're not in communion with the Methodist Church. But in any case, we also have the Anglican Church has moved in, has been systematically growing their congregation one person at a time. I don't know where they're meeting at the moment, but they've sort of usurped our place in the minds of the local community. So, but we decided instead of going, adversarial on it, we just let them do their thing and we're just going to do ours.
That sounds like a good strategy. What else to do? Yeah, that's right. I should pass it along here. Jennifer Shadle has her hand up, and I can't see everybody's hands, so maybe you should get rid of this slide, Mike, and I can see faces then, and we can see. Oh, there we go. Okay, great. So Jennifer.
Thank you, Nancy. A couple of things I've really been here. I've just been off screen and silent. A couple of things have come to my mind. I'll try to be quick about it. One of the slides started out with the healthy congregation has strong lay leadership. I am, by the way, I'm part-time vicar at St. Peter the Apostle in Pueblo, which is not a rural church, but it definitely qualifies as small. And we are incredibly blessed to have 3 members who have taken training and become lay pastoral leaders. Now, one of the sad things of that is also that, well, everybody's getting a little older, but one is now into her middle 80s and has decided that she's going to back down from some of her responsibilities, but honorably so. Having that strong lay leadership that's not priest dependent has kept St. Peter's alive during stretches of time when there was no priest. And they actually approached me about being part-time with them. We started out, we're just going to be 1 Sunday a month, and that has grown some, but only to 2 Sundays a month. But they approached me in October of 2020. And they had already gone online. People the lay pastoral leaders and others had gone out into the rest of the community and congregation and made sure that our elders could log into Zoom. And I joined a congregation already well established in morning prayer via Zoom, November 1st of 2020. I got to meet them in person about 8 months later.
Yeah.
That was one thing I wanted to say. And another thing is, I see at least one of my fellow retired priests around here, and you just mentioned Missy Doug Neal. Those of us who have retired relatively recently and are not feeling that we're called to leave our ministry entirely should really get involved. I feel like St. Peter's is my congregation. They look to me as their pastor, but my responsibilities and my time commitments are comfortably limited. And that's a good solution in the dilemmas that we often find ourselves in.
Great. That's a great suggestion, Jennifer. Thank you for doing that. I see Betsy Leonard up there with her hand up.
Yes, let me lower my hand.
And maybe if everyone would start out by saying where they're from and what their church is.
Sounds good.
I'm from the same church as Doug Saxton, and we are located halfway between Glenwood Springs and Grand Junction. We're a rural community and we're small. So what I wanted to say, how we've changed after the pandemic, is I think as a whole, the congregation has relaxed. Things that were important were not quite so important anymore. And that has allowed us to follow Doug's lead in thinking in new ways about us. We also, and I'll give you an example. Before the pandemic, we lost our person that plays the organ because she's elderly and she lost her ability to see. So we put a lot of effort into finding someone else that could come and play for us. We contacted the music department in Grand Junction at Colorado University. They sent a student out. Long story short, she had never accompanied anybody, and anyway, she didn't work out for us. But that allowed us to get a synthetic music machine. And we were pretty, and this music machine can play, it can play an Episcopal service, a Methodist service, lots of different services. It can do piano, it can do organ, it can do orchestra. I mean, there's lots of options, but we weren't very good with singing. It's just music, so we weren't very good singing along with it in the beginning. But now, after the pandemic, we're old pros. I mean, we mess up every once in a while, but we can do it now. And it's wonderful. Don't get me wrong. It's wonderful to have live piano or live organ, but when we can't have it, we make do.
Great. Thanks, Betsy. Catherine Richardson, what has changed for the better since the pandemic?
Okay, so we had a real neat thing. Well, it was good and bad at our meeting the other night.
And what church are you from? You should
Oh,
probably.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm Catherine Richardson. I'm at St. John's Episcopal Church in Newcastle. We are one of 3 churches that belong to Partnership, the Episcopal Church in Garfield County, with All Saints and St. Barnabas. And we have a partnership vicar that has been with us for over 3 years now. So that could be a starter, is that having a vicar in a partnership for over 3 years has really brought us together in helping us learn to work together in the partnership. We've still been able to maintain our our autonomy, our church personalities. If anybody, well, we have 3 distinct personalities. That's it. So she's done a great job with that, and we are now going forth. She's going to stay here, and we're going forth and have done good things in all 3 churches. So in St. John's, what I am excited about, even though it was sort of painful how I found this out, is last year at this time, we decided, because we have young families, we have a young family that had 3 kids that joined the year before, and then an older retired couple. Now the 3 kids just went through confirmation this year, and Bishop Kim confirmed them September 10th. So that family, and then a well-established family that has a 5-year-old now, those young families have friends. We were able to do the first Christmas pageant in 20 years at St. John's last year. So that was really exciting. So our young families are stepping up into positions too. We've got a couple that are now one on the Bishop's Committee and one as a junior warden. So we're seeing the old dogs being able to go lie down on the rug and take a rest. The other night, so a year ago, we started what we thought, we heard our young family saying is our service is 8 o'clock in the morning. And it's been hard for the young families to get to church at 8. So they were hoping for a different service, like a Wednesday night service. So we kicked that off last year. October was our first, and we've had once a month Wednesday night service. Some of those, the first intention was to have the reserve sacrament with our lay pastoral leader, our pastoral leader. And then there was an occasion that she could not be there. And so one of the another, not a part of the 2 or 3 groups I've mentioned, stepped up and say she wanted to do the homily and lead the Wednesday evening prayer service. So now we've got her up there as an example of jumping in there and doing that. And so the other night at our meeting, one of the young members asked me, do you think Christina and I could do this, lead the service? And so now we have 2, 3 young people that are interested in taking the Book of Common Prayer and leading an evening service. They're trying to come up with interesting ways of providing a little bit of music and yet keep this a simple service. Just keep it simple. So anyway, that's been thrilling, and we're loving it, and we're loving their participation.
Thanks,
Hi,
Catherine.
Maze. Something that I really like about that, Catherine, is the desire to try to do something a little bit different. And if it works, that's fantastic. If it doesn't work, then it just ends up not working and you move towards something else. But the fact that you all bounced on what several people have a real interest in doing, I think is excellent.
Well, Tim, I'm going to tell you something. This is the part that I feel I'm kicking myself for. So when we started this out last year, we have the pastoral leader and myself and the altar guild, and then we have a willing pianist would come from Glenwood every once a month Wednesday, and he's aware of, we pay him. So there was a Wednesday service. I wasn't there and several people weren't. So there was just the worship team. Well, what happened is it caused negativity. They said, oh, maybe this isn't working. The young people aren't showing up. So there was some talk in the background. I wasn't there. And so once I did get this information, I thought, well, maybe we need to relook at this and not do the whole shabam, just do the evening prayer service. So we were going to cut it back. Well, the young families got at this meeting, said, why is it we and they meaning the worship team and we being the young families? And I thought, I don't know. And I am so sorry for that. That's not how it should be. So that's where our decision to move forward is working out. And I'm glad that she put it that way. I didn't mean to say we and they as of the division, but it was taken that way, and it hurt. And it hurt this person in particular, but it was really a good eye opener for me. I often stick my foot in my mouth. So that was
no, Catherine, you never do that. No.
Thank you, Nancy. All right, that's it.
All right, we should, in the interest of time here, we should ask, are there others who want to share something that has happened for the better since the pandemic? We've got a few other points we want to touch on, but I want to make sure we give everyone a chance to share their thoughts, their ideas. I see that a number of folks are using a digital hymnal. I guess that's what you call it. It's like a boom box that plays music and has hymns and stuff. I've seen this at work in some other congregations, but yeah, there's some interesting options for people. Let me see here. Checking everybody. I don't lose. Oh, Kay Piper, please tell us where you're from. Oh, but you're muted.
Trying to unmute myself and get the screen together. I'm a deacon from St. John's Church in Granby. And what we've discovered, and I'm kind of surprised at myself when we first got into the Zoom stuff, I thought, oh, this is another electronic thing for me to learn. It took me a while. And thank goodness I had my husband, Gary, with me on it. But it really, to me, has turned out to be a valuable asset. There are a few people that come to service on Sunday through Zoom. I know the ideal situation would be everybody in person. But the other thing about this is that we're able to leave things on Zoom when we have to. Being the weather here is not reliable in the winter, it can be really cold and dangerous to drive. One thing I've started, and I started this last spring, is doing facilitating a Sacred Ground series on Zoom. And I really think that has brought more people forward. Sacred Ground is something that can be, probably is very touchy to talk about the different topics. And sometimes it seems easier, less scary to talk about it on screen, talk about these things, than being talking in person. So that's what I found. And we now have 10 participants in our current group. And last spring, we had the same. And, you know, we're a church of maybe 15 to 20 ASA. So I've also been going out of the church and gathering people that I know would be interested in this, and that's worked out well.
So an evangelistic sort of tool then to bring them in.
Right.
That's great. Yeah, I think we've all had to learn how to deal with Zoom and other online things, but it's been helpful, and it does allow us to be together across great distance. So that's certainly the advantage here. Okay. Well, we have a couple more things to chat about, so I'm going to throw it back to Tim to focus on a few things here.
You know, something that if a person's in a larger church, you know, all they need to do is look around and see, you know, there's several clergy, several staff here. Not all of us have that. In small congregations, sometimes we might think that we're alone. We're the only one out here on this little island of a church. There's nobody else around. But you are not alone. There's so much support out there. You know, you have your different regions. We got 5 regions in the state. Everyone has a missioner or some missioners that are in transition. But you are not alone. So I think that's really helpful to remember. And where I want to go with this, just a couple things, is if you're familiar with the website, there is so much information on the website. I'm wondering, actually, Mike, if I might be able to just do a quick share screen. Would that be possible?
Do you want to share or do you want me to share?
I can share it if you can just give me permission to do so.
Yep, you do.
All right, give me 1 second here. So I'm sure you all have seen the website many times. There's just a few things that I want to point out here. So under congregational resources, there is so much information, you know, when it comes to faith formation, whether it's children, whether it's adults. There's very specific things related to our baptismal covenant. Under leadership resources over here on the right, for administration and finance resources, there's so much information here. So we've got a diocese and a diocesan staff, the bishop staff, who is here to support us, and they do a fantastic job in doing so. And a lot of information, if you're not sure what to do, we have it here. Finances, compensation, benefits. There's just so much information here. So please do look around and get familiar with the website. All of our canons, clergy disciplinary process, our different regions over here on the right. So much information. But one to me that is even more important than the others is often we don't know where to go or who to talk to. So when we go to connect here on the website, Office of the Bishop Staff, and then from here you can search related to by the staff person's title or by topic. You can just search through all these different areas. So if you're not sure of where to go, website or the diocesan staff is a great place to look at. So please keep that in mind. Another thing, and I apologize, Ken and Mike, do we end at 2 or 2:15? I can't remember at the top of my head.
That is a great question. Let's see. We end 2:15.
Okay.
Tim, could I ask you to go back to that congregational resources page and point out where we have the small church corner listed?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Thank you very much.
Okay. Yep. And we might as well just say something about that here.
Yeah, give me 1 second. I'm going to pull that back up here.
So at the very bottom of this is the Small Church Corner, which has some resources in it. If you can click on it. Well, there it is. So there are a number of things here, including the task force report, but also other links as we hear about them. So always looking for content. If people have some things, some resources they think are worthwhile, this is a place where we can put them. So I just thought I'd mention that, bring that up. And I just heard about one the other day. Keep going down. Look. Well, maybe it's up above. Anyway, when we hear about things, it can be put here. The Episcopal Parish Network, What Makes Small Churches Thrive, was a good video that is available. So, so that's just for your information. Thanks, Tim.
Yeah, thank you very much, Nancy, for going through that. You know, when it comes to support, there's our diocesan staff, there's the website. You know, there's various publications that comes through the Colorado, Diocese of Colorado, that I think several of us are familiar with. There's something else that we had also been considering at the Abound retreats over the summer. There's a consideration of getting a support group together, one that meets on a regular basis, whether it's monthly, clergy, pastoral leaders, members of our leadership teams, whether it's the BCC, staff, just ways that we can continue to reach out and support one another. So though that hasn't gotten together yet, I guess one of the questions is for those of us here in small churches, if there's an interest to be a part of some sort of small congregation support team, support network, if you have an interest in that, please feel free to leave your name and email in the chat section, and we can kind of explore down that avenue if there is that interest. So if you want to be a part of some sort of support network for small congregations, just let us know. Nancy?
I might also ask Mike, put him on the spot again if he's still here, to say something about Caffeinated Church and the resources there. And if people don't know what Caffeinated Church, what it is and how they might benefit from it.
Yeah. So Caffeinated Church started about 7 years ago as a resource in our diocese. I needed a place where I could show churches where they could find the information. Otherwise, I'd be answering the same questions over and over. And so I built a site called Caffeinated Church because I wanted to make it fun, and I'm always caffeinated. And that grew to start hosting workshops, and we do about 40 workshops per year now. We have 350 active members from across the country, and I would say about 70% are Episcopal, but we also have a lot of Presbyterians and Methodists and Lutherans that are all a part of that. I might do a selfish plug here and show a little video if I might. Let's see. Because I'm really excited about this for our small churches, because we're doing a conference next September in Denver, and it is 50% off for all churches that have an ASA of 100 or less. So I will go ahead and share this short video.
Welcome to the inaugural Caffeinated Church Conference, a gathering of leaders, communicators, administrators, and volunteers from diverse faith communities across the country. Our mission is to equip and inspire you to enhance the efficiency and effectiveness of your church's communication and administrative functions. Join us September 9th through 12th, 2024 at St. John's Cathedral and the Office of the Bishop for the Episcopal Church in Colorado. Gain access to hands-on workshops led by known experts in church communications and administration. Hear from influential thought leaders who will challenge your thinking and provide fresh insights into the ever-changing landscape of church communication and administration. Topics include strategic planning, social media outreach, artificial intelligence, budgeting, digital evangelism, volunteer management, leadership development, and more. Connect with like-minded individuals who are facing similar challenges and share best practices. Engage in thoughtful discussions and create lasting relationships that will benefit your ministry. Explore the latest tools and technologies that can enhance your church's communication and administration. Whether you are a seasoned professional, just starting in your church role, or if you are a dedicated volunteer, this conference will provide you with the tools, insights, and inspiration you need to take your church to the next level. Together, we'll explore the strategies, techniques, and technologies that can empower your ministry to flourish. Join us September 9th through 12th, 2024 in Denver, Colorado for an enriching experience that promises to strengthen your abilities in church communications and administration.
So I really hope our churches will take advantage of that, whether you have volunteers or a church administrator. We'd love to welcome you to Denver for that conference.
Boy, Mike, you make us look so good. That looks very advanced. We're going to be building a rocket ship during this event. Is that that's pretty fancy. That's great. Well, I think we've covered our points here. Do we have anyone who needs to share something or have a perspective or a view they think we've just totally missed in our presentation, or things we should all be focused on or looking ahead to?
I just want to say, I think Mike builds rocket ships every day. So we may need to give him something more ambitious to do.
Thanks, Terry.
Don't lose the faith. Remember that why we're doing this and why we're, doing our struggles and thinking up new creative ways. It's only to serve Christ more fully.
Great.
Amen, Betsy.
That is so true.
Thanks, Betsy. It's great. Well, Tim, would you like to sign us off with just a quick word of prayer? I think we're probably good to go.
I'd be happy to. It was a pleasure to be with you all, and I hope that you got something out of this presentation. And look forward to seeing several of you for the convention coming up this weekend. The Lord be with you.
And also with you.
Let's pray. So direct, rule, and guide our hearts, Lord Christ, into a deeper and closer relationship with you and with one another. Help us to remember that when we are with someone, we might only see just the tip of the iceberg, but knowing that all of us have our struggles, all of us have our challenges that we face, and at various times in our lives, there might be a whole lot more going on in somebody else than we realize. Help us to continue to feed off of the grace that you give us, that we offer that grace into others. Help us to continue to strengthen and build your kingdom for your purposes. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thanks so much. It was great to see everyone. We'll see you at many of you at convention.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care, everyone.